Hello everybody, welcome to this short video on the BMX racing extenuating circumstances application procedure. I'm Sarah Morrison, the Selections Focus Manager here at Cycling New Zealand. So just wanted to show you a bit about how we get to the documents that apply in this situation. So just come over to the CNZ website, up to High Performance, Selection Regulations and Applications, click in there. On the General Selection Regulation, as we'll need that, pop into BMX Racing and open up the schedule. And you'll also see the Extenuating Circumstances submission form here. All right, so this is the 2026 BMX Racing World Championship selection schedule that you'll probably all be familiar with. And if you scroll down to the criteria, working through here, it'll talk about when extenuating circumstances can be considered if a rider feels that they need to make a submission on that. So if there are quota places remaining after the automatic selection under the earlier clause, the selection panel for BMX racing will convene to consider any selection of the rider who has made a claim for extenuating circumstances, injury, illness or other factors in accordance with clause 6 of the general selection regulation, which is this one. So basically, if you pop into here, hit that one, it'll take you straight through where you need to go. So when you have a wholly objective criteria, or where the where a panel doesn't exist, this isn't applicable. But BMX racing and track, for example, do have selection panels, and so they can convene to consider extenuating circumstances. The panels do retain the right to consider the extenuating circumstances, to weight them in their absolute discretion, and they also have the ability to follow up with further inquiries, as it's all outlined here in the general selection regulation. So if you feel you need to make one, please pop the claim in using this form, which is linked onto our website, as soon as you can after the extenuating circumstances, injury, illness or other factor arises. And the claim must be submitted within the performance window, which is at the end of the selection document. We've got the key timelines here. So just when the performance window closes, so too does the application for an extenuating circumstance. And the rationale for that is we, A, need it to be submitted as soon as it happens, whatever it may be, and B, we need people to understand that it can't replace a result that's missing, or a performance that wasn't what you were expecting to deliver in that particular event, but it can explain an absence from a race, or the results that you did achieve, or if there was a did not finish or something like that for the panel to consider. But what we don't want to see is something happening and then weeks or months later you decide that you want to put in an extenuating circumstance. It really does need to be within CUI of that result, bearing in mind that if you are significantly injured or sick, or whatever the reason is, that we understand that there could be delays in popping that in, and it'll be on case-by-case basis as to when it happened and the time at which you were able to submit this, or someone able to submit it on your behalf, particularly if you're a junior. And on that note, if you are a rider who is 18 years old or younger, then we will need to keep your guardian in the loop of any communications that we have with you around this, whether you're supplying supporting information. We will need to include your guardian in that, and that's part of our safeguarding policy. So if you send us an email and it's just from you, we will need to reply with CCing your guardian in on that. If there's any problems with that, then please do let us know. But only the contact information we'll be using is what you provide to us as your next of kin or guardian in your rider application form. The panel can request or ask me as the convener of the panel to request on their behalf other information to support your extenuating circumstances. And here are just some examples of what that might look like. It is, again, case by case. It's up to the panel, and we will work through that with you. But the best advice is to keep the communication open with us. If you pop an extenuating circumstance in, bring us along on the journey with you to your recovery, what your training is like when you get back to that, because we still have to see if there's the trajectory and projection that you'll be competition ready for those worlds come selection time. A new thing in the general selection regulation is that under an extenuating circumstance, we can consider performance history in the 3 months before the extenuating circumstance, injury, illness, or other factor occurred, and that may fall outside of the performance window. So if it was at the very, very start of the performance window, something happened, and you're working through coming back to competition, you might have missed the first qualifying event, but you're able to come back and perform at the next ones, we could consider anything that you did in that 3 months if there was an event in competition before that window. But bearing in mind that the selection panel have the full discretion as to what is considered relevant or pertinent to seeing your return to sport and competitiveness for the World Championships. So yeah, bring us along on the journey with you, and we'll work with you for that. So the form there that it will ask you to fill out, and it will be received by myself. I will come back to you and say thank you that we've got your submission for this, and just remind you about submitting supporting evidence if you haven't already sent it through. So the selections at cyclingnewzealand.nz will come through to me. I'll forward it on to the selection panel, and there's an agreed date at which they will convene to assess that. And it is just, again, really important to understand that it doesn't replace a missed result, and it can't. And we do need to be able to have some results within that performance window or 3 months back from the event itself to be able to consider your fitness and competitiveness to meet the objectives or the criteria. Okay, so get in touch if you have any further questions about that. Hopefully the form is relatively easy to follow. We've put in word for word what it's asking you to cover off, just so you don't have to flick back and forward between documents, but we do strongly recommend that you have the documents open. There's a space for, is there anything else you would like to tell the selection panel, and that you're just attesting that the information in the form is true and correct to the best of your knowledge. Okay, thank you very much for your time. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you. Bye.